Welcome back, people, to F1P1 Life. That's right, I'm your host, Sean Kilburn, and wow, we are having technical difficulties here in the man cave. That is not a problem whatsoever because I'm going to get the ball rolling. I got the old GoPro out. That's right, we're going to do it anyway. The Australian Grand Prix was actually quite a good race. I think many of you will agree, and I'll wait to pat my own back. But first, a quick 30-second rundown of what really took place here. Well, Verstappen got away in P1, of course, but Sainz held on right behind him. Verstappen DNFs just a few laps in, yes, that's right, and followed by none other than Hamilton. That's right. So yeah, double DNF for the world champions there. And his was due to an engine failure. Verstappen's was due to a brake issue. Piastri dabbles with the podium for a while, you know, the home favorite, and that was pretty nice. Perez was kind of pretty much the best of the rest for a while, and Charles, you know, tried to give his teammate a run, but it just didn't happen. And hey, by the way, to keep the streak alive, you know, 3 times the charm, old Russell, yeah, that's right, crashed on the last lap while Sainz grabs the win of the Australian Grand Prix. All right, there's a 30-second recap. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Was that good? Do I need to revamp it? Did I miss something? Give me a hard time. Give me a good pat on the back, whatever it is. Anyway, we are moving on because I will say right off the bat, before I jump into 3 specific things that we're going to cover very quickly here, I want to just give myself a pat on the back for calling it out. I said that Red Bull was going to have a more difficult time than the first 2 championships getting it done. Now, you might say, well, hey, Sean, you know, the first one that he got came down to the last lap. We all know what happened. Yes, that's true. But they were on top of their game. They were just going at it, and they were just at such a high level. With coming into the season with the whole Christian Horner issue, with just the fact of the pressure of having, you know, coming in looking for another championship, it's just piling on. So much is going on, and you can only sustain that intense level of commitment, tenacity, everything before you start to see some issues. And I just kind of called it that this was going to be it. Now, I do still think that Verstappen's going to clinch another championship this year, barring something drastic. But he's not going to run away with it. It's going to take some time, and they're going to have issues like this. And I think there's going to be some more competition for wins. So, hey, Sainz, my man at Ferrari right now. I love Sainz. I've always loved him since Red Bull, since, you know, when he went to McLaren, the whole bromance with Lando. Gotta love Lando. And, you know, he's just a good character. He's a good guy. And he races hard, he races well, he has good racecraft. I just like it. So, last thing I'll mention on that is, I can't wait to see where he lands next season. Of course, there'll be more videos on that from everybody else, and I'm sure myself as well. So, a couple of things that I really want to touch on is, I'm going to pull up a couple clips real quick. The first one being from P1 with Matt and Tommy. Nah, not F1P1 Life. And yes, I did come up with my name first, but hey, I mean, they're doing well. I love watching them. I'm not going to hate on them at all. And so I'm actually going to bring up a clip of them on what they have to say right now. And then I just want to give my feedback on what I think they had to say about it.
I'm not sure we're going to knee-jerk this to a case of Red Bull now have bad reliability. But of course, it's gonna be an issue, especially when we were just complaining only the last weekend that, or the weekend before, F1, no one has reliability issues anymore.
No one has reliability issues, and then the 2 drivers that never retire, Hamilton and Verstappen, had retirement.
Yeah, so perhaps it was just a unique set of circumstances, which I'd probably lean more towards. But look, if he has another one and Charles Leclerc leads the World Championship, man is not complaining about that one.
Yes, how true, how true. So, maybe kind of dabbing back into my topic previously, but just to give some credence to, you know, what I'm saying here, and also what I like and I picked up on what they're talking about specifically is that I think a lot of people were kind of expecting that this is just going to be another runoff into the distance with Verstappen. And certainly reliability has been something of a non-issue, non-starter, other than maybe somebody in the backfield that doesn't really, I don't want to say doesn't matter to the championship, but you know what I mean, isn't really contesting like that. And so it's what we needed right now. Honestly, I mean, I know a lot of people cheered and stuff because it's Max Verstappen, but he's leading the championship. It just cuts it up a different sort of way at the beginning of this season, and it just makes things spicy. You know what I mean? And then to have Hamilton go out right at the same time, well, right after, you know, it just adds to because Hamilton was a little farther back, but you know his racecraft, you know he's good at race pace, and he was sure to be up in the mix somewhere. And how terrible for Mercedes to just score no points. I mean, that's not good for the team championship at all. Yeah, and actually we're going to touch on that in just a moment. But first, the next subject that I want to touch upon, and that's going to be from Sky F1 podcast. I'm actually going to bring up something that was discussed with Bernie Collins. So let me just roll that right now.
Despite all, the best analysis in the world, you sort of have to look at race data. We don't have the data from Max, but we do have some data for Checo. Ignoring the lap time, the big unknown for Red Bull for me is at this type of track, the deck was really quite poor for Checo at the end of the stint. He was really struggling at the end of each stint. He showed points where the Red Bull was fast, and I think we've comments from both Mercedes drivers that it was like a rocket ship going past, but he couldn't hold on to the deck, and that's a worry for Red Bull going forward. So could Max have done a better job? We don't know. So could Ferrari have beaten them in a straight fight? It would have been really interesting to find out potentially. But it gives us hope going forward. Like you say, it's a very different race to Singapore they were bad at last year. So there's hope.
There's hope. Yes. And I'll say my opinion. Could Max have done a better job? Yes. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm a Checo fan. I like Checo. But from everything we've seen, we know. I mean, look at the way that Max was driving the car as it was like falling apart. I mean, he was on the pace. Yeah, he got passed by Sainz, and I give Sainz all the credit in the world. But, I mean, I'm just trying to prove the point that his pace is just phenomenal. That said, I do think that, again, touches back on the point that Red Bull are not untouchable this season. They're going to have to work, and I think Bernie put it well, that the DEG there seemed different than what we're used to as well. And I'm not sure if that was just track specific. We shall see. I kind of hope that it isn't, because I want more of racing right at the top. You know what I mean? Right at P1. You know what I mean? I want racing. I don't want somebody leading and everybody battling for 2 and 3. So that would be nice. I think it would have been a lot harder fought battle with Sainz. If I were to put money on it, I think I would still give it that Sainz had the pace. The car had the pace. Sainz was on it. Carlos was on that top tier category driving. It was a different kind of driving that day in Australia. Everything was clicking. Everything was right. And not just a lucky right. It was smooth operator. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, people? And I just think he would have had it. But I think Max would have put on, it would have been a race all the way to the end, I think. And it would have been more interesting to see. But I really like what she put out there. It makes us think, and it gives us hope. Like she said, hope for a really interesting season. And I think she's right about that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, you heard me say that it was unfortunate that the Mercedes didn't score points. Well, we come to find out that, the reason that they didn't score points was, having to do partially with Alonso. Now, I think if Hamilton was behind him, Hamilton's been racing Alonso a lot longer, which Russell has had his moments with Alonso, but I think Hamilton might have read what Alonso was going to do. Maybe even if it was more drastic than he expected. I feel like somebody like Max, Hamilton, they just handle things like that. That's what you get out of these top level drivers. And something like Alonso doing it to himself, he probably would have, that sounds crazy, but you know what I mean? Like Alonso having somebody else do it. But Russell, he kind of noticed it, but then it still slipped by. And anyway, so I want to hear what they have to say, what do you call it, at the race. And I'm just going to roll a quick clip and then I'll just talk about it before we close out here.
Racing etiquette dictates that checking up arrival by going extra slowly through a critical corner or section of a circuit so as to delay them is a bit naughty, but part of what Alonso calls the art of motorsport. But even if you think Alonso's intentions were entirely noble here, and he in fact wasn't trying to unduly influence Russell's race in the slightest, Alonso at the very least made a massive misjudgment, something more befitting of a rank amateur with no F1 experience than a two-time champion.
All right. My opinion, again, because that's what this show is about, you know what I mean? F1 fan, my opinion. I'm not sitting here talking about engineering data and so forth, although we may look at stuff like that at some point. Alonso knew what he was doing, and he kind of said it. It's one of these things. Like, I get what Alonso's saying, that this is all part of racecraft, and yes, maybe he did bang in lap after lap after lap the same way, but he's entitled to do it different ways if he wanted to, and he chose to do it different ways that time. That said, I do see from the data that's been provided, from the analysis on how it was almost 300 feet earlier, 100 meters, whatever, and just so drastically different than before and unexpected, especially for the last lap and this and that. And it seems like the FI did a lot of analysis and work behind this before they just came out with this judgment. But I think Alonso knew. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it wasn't a rank amateur Alonso's falling off his game thing. I have no second questions that I think maybe a teeny bit, like 5%, Alonso, yes, he knew what he was doing and it slightly didn't go the way he wanted, but not so much so that something completely alternative to what he expected happened, maybe just slightly took a line slightly a few centimeters different than he wanted. It braked an extra 10, he would have done 90 meters instead of, you know what I'm trying to say? I don't think, and so either way, the way the race was putting it was like kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If either you admit that you did something that was wrong or whatever, or you kind of make it seem like you didn't do anything, but something went wrong and it was kind of rank amateurish. I get what everybody's saying, and it's very interesting. Unfortunate for Russell, he would have scored some decent points for Mercedes, but he didn't. And that's F1. That's Formula One right there. That's why I love this amazing sport. You know what I mean? So, hey, I'm sorry that the quality may not be as good as some of the other videos. I'll try to get some of this ironed out and so forth. I was working on it yesterday, but hey, I had to get this video out. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get it out there, see if I can get some comments and so forth. And yeah, make sure you're hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. This is F1 P1 Life. I'm your host, Sean Kilburn, and I'll see you all next time.